Most people fail to acquire money not because they lack intelligence, but because they refuse to understand the one force that governs every profitable interaction: manipulation. In this video, I will show you why those who reject manipulation become pawns in the games of those who master it, and how learning it is no longer optional if you wish to protect your wealth, your reputation, and your future. In every society, ancient courts, modern corporations, digital empires, wealth has never belonged to the innocent. It belongs to those who understand the hidden architecture of human desire. The world rewards influence, not purity; strategy, not sincerity. You live among individuals who cloak their ambitions behind smiles, behind favors, behind soft words designed to appear harmless. But beneath their courtesy lies calculation, and beneath their calculation lies manipulation, a tool as old as power itself. Tonight, I will walk you through the shadows where real transactions occur, where men speak one truth and act upon another, where money flows not to the ethical, but to the strategic. If you wish to survive and rise, you must enter this space with your eyes open, your mind sharpened, and your intentions hidden. Most people imagine manipulation as a dark art practiced only by villains. But tell me, when has the world ever rewarded the non-V? When has innocence ever protected anyone from ambition dressed in polite clothes? You already know the answer. Manipulation is not merely an offensive tool, it is a shield, a form of armor for those who understand that every human interaction carries an agenda, spoken or unspoken. If you refuse to learn it, you simply become the surface others carve their desires into. Consider the courts of Renaissance Italy. Men were not destroyed by open enemies, but by friends who smiled too warmly, who promised too much, who acted with gentle hands while guiding the knifed beneath the cloak. What protected the wise was not brute strength, but the ability to recognize intent before it became action, to sense manipulation in its newborn form, and respond with greater subtlety. So let me ask you, how many times have you assumed someone's kindness was genuine? How many times have you believed a person's praise, their promises, their apologies, only to discover later that their words were crafted instruments designed to lead you where they wanted you to go? You call it betrayal, but in truth, it was strategy. You simply didn't see it. This is why manipulation must be understood. Not to harm, but to defend. The man who recognizes the trap will never fear it. The woman who studies the strings others pull cannot be made to dance. Psychologists describe something called impression management, the subtle shaping of how others see you. People practice it constantly, whether they admit it or not. Employees flatter their supervisors, not because they admire them, but because they want to survive. Influencers project confidence, not because they possess it, but because you reward them for it. Politicians express empathy, not because they feel it, but because empathy is the currency that buys allegiance. These are not acts of purity. They are controlled manipulations, and if you do not understand these mechanisms, you are the one being operated on. Imagine a negotiation. One person enters prepared, emotionally detached, studying every cue with a cold eye. The other enters trusting, certain that honesty alone will earn fairness. Who walks away with the better deal? Who walks away confused, wondering why the world seems unfair? Power belongs to the strategist. Let me give you a simple example. A colleague compliments your work excessively. You think they admire you, but in reality, they may be preparing you, softening your defenses, so that when they ask you for a favor, you comply without hesitation. You feel valued. They feel victorious. In another situation, someone pretends to underestimate you. They make you believe you have the advantage, and because you feel superior, you reveal more than you should. Your plans, your weaknesses, your intentions. They gather information quietly, patiently, without ever needing to pressure you. When the moment arrives, they strike with your own revelations. This is manipulation. But more importantly, this is what you must learn to detect. Recognizing manipulation does not make you cynical, it makes you sovereign. When you see how people bend reality for their benefit, you begin to resist the illusion. You start to ask the right questions. Why are they telling me this? What do they want from this exchange? What happens if I refuse the role they are trying to assign me? Strength is not found in innocence, it is found in clarity. History rewards those who understand this. The rulers who survived were not the strongest, but the most perceptive. They learned to read intentions like maps. They accepted that human nature, unchanged across centuries, leans toward self-interest. And once you accept that truth, manipulation becomes less of a threat and more of a language. A language you must learn if you wish to protect your money, your peace, and your future. Because here is the cold truth: you are being manipulated every day, at work, online, in relationships, in conversations shaped by hidden motives. The question is not whether manipulation exists. The question is whether you can see it before it reaches you. And now that you understand why this skill is necessary, the next step is far more unsettling. You must learn how to shape perception yourself. Perception is the currency that governs every arena of power. You may believe money is earned through skill, effort, or virtue, but the world does not operate on such gentle illusions. It rewards those who shape how they are seen. Consider this: people do not respond to who you truly are, they respond to who they think you are. That single distinction determines opportunity, authority, and access. If a man appears confident, competent, and controlled, doors open before he even reaches for the handle. Yet if he appears insecure or uncertain, those same doors remain sealed. Ask yourself, how often has your image spoken before you opened your mouth? In the courts of Florence, reputation was more valuable than gold. A single rumor, strategically placed, could elevate a man to influence or cast him into obscurity. But here is what many forget: reputations were rarely accurate. They were crafted, negotiated, and defended with relentless precision. Why? Because power flows toward perceived strength. Even today, people follow those who appear decisive, disciplined, and desirable, regardless of their true substance. You have witnessed this in your own life. A colleague who seems organized is trusted with responsibility. A charismatic speaker is believed before he is verified. Perception becomes reality long before truth has a chance to speak. Ask yourself, how often have you been judged not for your ability, but for the story others constructed around you? A story shaped by their expectations, fears, or desires. Human psychology thrives on shortcuts. People decide who you are within seconds, then spend years justifying that first impression. This is why mastering perception is essential. The one who controls how others interpret their presence becomes untouchable. History is filled with leaders who seemed invincible not because they were invincible, but because they cultivated the illusion with care. A steady gaze, a measured tone, a silence held one moment longer than expected. These were their weapons. Consider modern life. A person who dresses with intention is assumed competent. A person who speaks with certainty is granted authority. A person who appears unbothered is believed to possess strength. None of these traits guarantee truth, yet they shape outcomes more reliably than sincerity ever could. Why? Because perception reduces uncertainty. People cling to what feels stable. They choose the confident physician, the composed leader, the polished entrepreneur. Not because these individuals are flawless, but because they project the illusion of mastery. And you, knowingly or not, are influenced by such illusions every day. Let me give you a scenario. Two individuals enter a room for the same opportunity. One is skilled but nervous, dressed without intention, speaking with hesitations that betray inner doubt. The other is average in skill but precise in presentation, walking with controlled calm, speaking with confidence that suggests reliability. Who will be chosen? The world rarely selects the most capable, it selects the most convincing. This truth unsettles those who cling to merit alone, yet it liberates those who understand the game. If you shape perception, you shape destiny, and if you neglect it, others will define you before you define yourself. So ask yourself, what image do you project, even when you are silent? Do you appear disciplined or distracted, deliberate or chaotic, confident or hesitant? People draw conclusions instantly, and once formed, these impressions are difficult to reverse. This is why perception must be engineered, not left to chance. The greatest strategists understood this. They knew that controlling how others interpret their actions gave them an advantage even before negotiations began. When you command perception, you do not need to explain yourself. The world explains you for you. And once the world believes your image, your influence grows with minimal effort. But mastering perception is only the beginning, because the next skill is far more dangerous. For if perception grants you access, what you do with that access determines whether you rise or fall. The next layer of power is not about looking strong, but about subtly bending interactions to your advantage without ever appearing to do so. It is the art that turns presence into persuasion and influence into control. And once you grasp this hidden mechanism, you will never see human behavior again. Hidden intentions are the true engines of power. What you want, what you seek, what you hunger for. These are the very things you must never reveal. The moment your ambitions become visible, you hand others the blueprint to your destruction. And in every age, from ancient courts to modern offices, the ambitious who spoke too freely were the first to fall. Ask yourself, how many opportunities have slipped from your hands simply because someone sensed what you wanted? When people see your destination, they block the road. When they see your desire, they weaponize it. But when they see nothing, when your mind becomes a closed fortress, they lose their leverage and you gain command. In the Italian city-states, secrecy wasn't a tactic, it was survival. A ruler who displayed his intentions openly invited resistance. Rivals strategized, allies hesitated, and enemies sharpened their knives. But the leader who acted with quiet calculation, one who moved as if guided by smoke rather than footsteps, held the advantage. No one could predict him. Few dared to challenge him. And those who tried fell into traps they didn't know were set. The same principle rules your daily life. Consider the workplace. The employee who openly declares he wants a promotion becomes a threat. His colleagues feel challenged. His supervisors grow suspicious. Even those who admire him quietly hope he fails. But the one who masks his ambition behind patience, humility, and controlled silence gathers influence without opposition. While others clash openly, he builds quietly. And one day, he steps forward, leaving everyone stunned at how easily he secured the position they were all fighting for. Psychology confirms what history already taught. People instinctively resist anyone whose goals disrupt their comfort or superiority. We are wired to compete, even when we pretend to cooperate. When someone sees your objective, they immediately begin calculating how your success affects their status. And if it threatens them, even slightly, they act against you, often without admitting it to themselves. This is why concealed intentions create strength. When your motives are hidden, others cannot oppose what they cannot see. Think of a negotiation. The first person who reveals their bottom line loses power instantly. Their anchor becomes vulnerable. Their flexibility becomes obvious. But the person who keeps their desires obscure forces the other side to move blindly, making concessions out of uncertainty. Control is not seized. It is surrendered by those who speak too soon. You may believe honesty creates trust, but honesty creates vulnerability long before it creates loyalty, and loyalty itself is fragile, often built on convenience rather than conviction. People support you as long as your path does not overshadow their own. The moment your ambition grows too visible, their support dissolves. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you are quietly building a business while maintaining the appearance of modest goals. Your friends celebrate you. Your peers admire your discipline. No one feels threatened. But the moment you declare, "I will surpass them all," the energy shifts. They begin to question you, doubt you, discourage you. Some do it softly. Others do it with disguised hostility. But all are responding to the same trigger, your revealed intention. Now imagine the opposite. You say nothing. You move quietly. You grow silently. And then, without warning, your success manifests fully formed, undeniable, and untouchable. At that point, their resistance comes too late. The victory is already yours. Silence protects your ambition. Mystery protects your strategy. Concealment protects your future. Even the greatest political thinkers understood this. They knew that rivals could counter a plan only if they knew it existed. A hidden plan, however, becomes a silent predator, advancing without creating fear, striking before a defense can form. When your intentions remain invisible, the world miscalculates you, and miscalculation is the most valuable ally you will ever have. So ask yourself now, how much of your life do you reveal unnecessarily? How many of your dreams have you placed in the hands of people who do not need to know them? How many strategies have you ruined simply by exposing them too early? Understand this truth. People cannot sabotage what they cannot identify. They cannot resist what they cannot predict. And they cannot manipulate what they cannot read. But mastering concealment is only the beginning. Because what follows next is far more dangerous: learning how to use other people's desires to guide them exactly where you want them to go. Human beings reveal themselves long before they intend to. Their desires leak through their words, their gestures, their insecurities, their silences. And once you understand what a person craves, you no longer need force, intimidation, or threats. You need only to present the illusion that you can satisfy, or withhold, the very thing they hunger for. This is the foundation of emotional leverage. Ask yourself, how many times have you acted not out of reason, but out of desire? How often has the need to be respected, admired, chosen, validated, or understood shaped your decisions more than logic ever could? You may believe you are rational, but desire governs you more than intellect does. And the same is true for every person you encounter. In the courts of the old Italian states, rulers survived not by reading documents, but by reading men. A minister who sought recognition could be controlled with flattery. A soldier who feared irrelevance could be driven to loyalty by promising him importance. A noble who wanted to appear moral could be steered by appealing to his need for public virtue. No chains were needed, only the careful use of a man's inner hunger. People follow those who promise them emotional reward. They resist those who threaten their emotional stability. This has remained true from ancient empires to modern workplaces. Consider the colleague who constantly seeks approval. To influence them, you do not argue, you validate them. Their desire for praise becomes the leash you hold. By approving their small actions, you guide their larger ones. And they obey willingly, convinced that serving your interests fulfills their own emotional need. Or think of the person who fears abandonment. With them, scarcity becomes your advantage. You maintain distance, not hostility. You remain slightly unavailable, never fully present. And they chase you, desperate for reassurance. Their fear becomes your leverage, subtle, quiet, and astonishingly effective. Psychology describes these tendencies as core needs: significance, belonging, esteem, certainty, connection. Everyone has at least one dominant need, and once you identify it, you possess the key to their behavior. They will defend you, support you, and prioritize you, not because you asked, because aligning with you satisfies something inside them. Let me give you a simple story. Imagine two negotiators. One focuses on facts, figures, and logic. The other studies the opponent's emotional weakness. He notices insecurity in the opponent's tone, a need to appear competent. So instead of challenging him, he praises his expertise. He subtly frames every point as if the opponent's intelligence is responsible for the progress. The opponent, feeling admired, becomes agreeable, relaxed, generous. By the end, he signs a deal that benefits the strategist far more than himself, believing it was his own idea. This is emotional leverage at its purest. You are not manipulating the mind. You are manipulating the desire that shapes the mind. But here is the nuance few understand. You must never make people aware that you've identified their weakness. Once they know you see through them, they become defensive. The influence dissolves, so your recognition must remain silent. Your actions must appear natural. Your timing must be precise. In your personal life, this principle operates constantly. A partner who longs for admiration will forgive almost anything in exchange for feeling desired. A friend who fears loneliness will cling to any relationship offering consistency. A mentor who hungers for legacy will support anyone who seems to carry their future influence. Even strangers can be guided simply by reflecting the emotion they are secretly seeking. But understand this clearly. Emotional leverage is not about cruelty. It is about power through understanding. People are not controlled through domination, they are controlled through fulfillment. The moment you identify what someone fears, loves, avoids, or worships, you gain the ability to steer them without resistance. They walk willingly in the direction you choose, because it feels like the direction they chose. And here is the deepest truth: most people never realize how predictable they are. Their desires operate them like invisible strings, and the one who sees these strings becomes the unseen puppeteer. But emotional leverage is only one layer of mastery. Because even if you understand human weakness, you will fail unless you learn the next skill: the ruthless clarity needed to make decisions without being clouded by the very emotions you read in others. Emotion is the enemy of clarity, not because emotion is evil, but because it distorts the world into shapes that flatter your hopes instead of revealing the truth. And in the pursuit of power, the truth, cold, unvarnished, and indifferent, is the only ally you can rely on. Ask yourself, how many decisions have you made because you were angry, fearful, jealous, or hopeful, only to regret them the moment clarity returned? How many times did you trust someone because you felt they were honest? How often did you overlook warning signs because you wanted the story to end differently? In moments of emotion, you are blind, and the person who sees clearly at that same moment holds absolute advantage over you. In the courts of old Europe, the most dangerous individuals were never the furious or the passionate. They were the calm, the quiet, the ones who watched chaos unfold around them while remaining still, calculating, untouchable. Their power came from what others lacked: discipline over their own impulses. A ruler who acted out of rage lost alliances. A commander who acted from fear lost battles. A diplomat who acted from pride lost negotiations. But the strategist who could freeze emotion, even briefly, became impossible to predict and even harder to defeat. Now look at your own life. Consider a negotiation. If someone insults you subtly, your instinct is to defend your dignity. You speak too quickly. You reveal too much. Your emotion forces you to prove yourself immediately. But imagine, instead, responding with silence, calm, unbroken, intentional silence. Who gains power? Who loses control? Who begins to fear they miscalculated? The one who stays calm becomes the center of gravity in any room. Psychology explains this through affect regulation, the ability to control emotional expression even when emotion is present. Most people cannot do this. Their faces reveal too much. Their tone betrays their insecurity. Their words rush out before thought takes shape. And because they react quickly, they react poorly. But the person who pauses, who breathes, who observes before acting, that person becomes a psychological threat. Why? Because unpredictable calmness makes others uneasy. They cannot gauge your intentions. They cannot manipulate your reactions. They cannot read your weaknesses. Your silence becomes their discomfort. Your stillness becomes their pressure. Your detachment becomes their fear. Think of a relationship argument. One partner raises their voice. The other responds emotionally. It escalates. Nothing is solved. Both feel wounded. But imagine one partner remaining composed, listening, analyzing, speaking slowly and deliberately. Now the emotional partner loses ground. Their power evaporates. They feel irrational, unstable, exposed. And in seeking to regain balance, they often concede more than they intended. Calmness is not softness. It is dominance disguised as serenity. In your career, the same principle rules every hierarchy. The employee who rushes to defend themselves appears guilty. The one who panics under scrutiny appears incompetent. The one who reacts emotionally appears unprepared. But the individual who meets criticism with measured confidence creates authority without raising a single word in self-defense. Emotion invites control. Calmness destroys it. Let me give you a brief story. Imagine two rivals competing for the same position. One hears a rumor that the other is favored. He becomes anxious. He confronts people. He tries to gather information. He becomes visibly shaken. His insecurity becomes public. The other hears the same rumor and remains still. He makes no reaction. He continues his work with the same pace and presence. His calmness is interpreted as confidence. Others assume he knows something they do not. Guess who is perceived as stronger? Guess who is treated with more respect? Guess who ultimately secures the position? Often, power is not about truth. It is about perception of control. And emotional discipline gives you that perception. But emotional discipline is not simply about suppressing feelings. It is about understanding them, recognizing the traps they create, and refusing to let them dictate your actions. It is about mastering yourself before attempting to master others. Because here is the deepest truth. The one who cannot control their own emotions will always be controlled by someone who can. And once you understand this principle, you are ready for the next, and most dangerous, step, transforming your emotional clarity into a long-term structure of influence that protects your money, your position, and your legacy. Influence is the final stage of power, not the loud influence that begs for attention, but the quiet one. The kind that reshapes decisions, realigns loyalties, and alters outcomes without ever exposing the hand that guided them. Manipulation, when refined, becomes something far greater. It becomes structure. It becomes system. It becomes a network of perceptions, loyalties, and dependencies that continue working in your favor long after you have stopped speaking. Ask yourself, would you rather win once through force or win repeatedly through systems that no one realizes you built? True influence is invisible. People believe they chose their path freely, not knowing you arranged the walls and openings around them. You do not push them. They walk willingly. In the old city-states, the most powerful families were not the strongest in battle, but the ones who shaped the social landscape itself. They placed allies in important roles. They controlled narratives through subtle rumor. They offered favors at strategic moments, ensuring those who benefited felt indebted even years later. Their influence spread like roots underground, never seen, always felt. This is how you must think, not in moments, not in isolated acts, but in structures. Consider your own surroundings. You can manipulate someone once, yes, but if you wish to rise, you must build patterns that continuously advantage you. Think of 3 domains: reputation, alliances, and dependencies. Together, they form the architecture of influence. Let us begin with reputation. A strong reputation is not simply being admired. Admiration fades. Reputation is when people assume your competence, power, or value before you open your mouth. It is a form of psychological gravity. People lean toward you because they believe others lean toward you. This is why you must curate the stories that circulate about you. Not through bragging, but through controlled consistency. A single impressive act, repeated through whispers, becomes legend, and legend requires far less effort to maintain than striving for attention every day. Next, alliances. Most people form alliances emotionally. You must form them strategically. Align with those whose rise benefits you. Support those who cannot threaten you. Strengthen those who weaken your rivals. And always remember, alliances are not friendships. They are exchanges of power disguised as goodwill. Even the warmest alliance should serve your long-term position. The final domain, dependencies, is the one most people overlook, but it is the most powerful. When someone depends on you for opportunity, validation, protection, or resources, they become an extension of your will. They act in your interest because they cannot imagine functioning without your presence. The key is subtlety. Never make someone feel owned. Make them feel supported. Let them believe their success is theirs, while knowing quietly that you enabled it. This creates a cycle. They rise, and with them, your influence rises. They defend you, because defending you is defending themselves. They follow your direction, not because you command, but because their instincts guide them there. Think of a workplace example. Instead of manipulating a single colleague, imagine shaping the entire environment so your strengths appear indispensable. You mentor selectively. You solve problems quietly before others notice them. You give small opportunities to people who hunger for recognition. Soon, multiple individuals feel connected to you, indebted to you, supported by you. Their success becomes tied to your stability. This is no longer manipulation, it is influence. A structure that persists even when you are silent. Psychology confirms this through the concept of internalized authority. When people repeatedly view someone as a source of clarity or opportunity, their minds automatically assign that person a higher rank in their personal hierarchy. You do not need to demand respect. Their brains create the hierarchy for you. But understand this clearly influence is fragile when it appears forced. It is strongest when it is organic. When people believe they chose you, trusted you, elevated you. Your task is to design the conditions that lead them to that choice. The greatest strategists did not control individuals, they controlled atmospheres. They controlled expectations. They controlled narratives. Their power was not in their voice, but in the silent architecture that made their voice unnecessary. So ask yourself, are you playing the game? Or are you shaping the arena in which the game is played? Are you influencing moments, or are you influencing systems? Are you seeking obedience, or are you cultivating voluntary alignment? Because once influence becomes structural, your power no longer requires effort. It simply exists. And yet, there is one truth even greater than influence, the ability to protect your power from those who resent it, envy it, or seek to claim it for themselves. In the end, power is never taken by force alone. It is taken by perception, by quietly shaping how others see the world, and how they believe they are choosing on their own. The most effective control is invisible, when people swear they are acting freely. Yet every path they walk leads exactly where you intended. That is the mark of a true strategist. Remember this. Those who announce their intentions invite resistance. Those who whisper through actions, patterns, and emotional cues guide entire groups without lifting a sword. So ask yourself, are you moving through life as the one being directed, or the one designing the direction? If today's lesson unsettled you, good, it means you understand its truth. Now sharpen the blade further. Comment your thoughts below. Tell me the tactic you recognized most clearly. Subscribe if you want more psychological and Machiavellian strategies delivered without mercy. And share this video with someone who still believes influence must be loud. They will learn, or they will remain predictable. The choice, as always, is